I want to try something new.
Another biopic, another movie about a music pop hero. But this one has the unenviable task of covering the journey of Elvis Aaron Presley. And there's also a Thai connection with this story. More about that later. There's already Oscar buzz around this film and the portrayal of Elvis by Austin Butler.
Bring that bass up, Jerry.
And the buzz is well founded. He eats this movie alive with one of the most captivating on-screen portrayals of a dead music star.
That's all right. That's all right. Boys,
the film is pretentious, over-decorated and probably overlong. But Baz Luhrmann has crafted a masterpiece biopic which covers the rise, stumbles and fall of the greatest solo act in modern music history.
Flames, man.
The movie is possibly a bit frenetic for some people that may prefer a slower meander through Elvis's catalogue. And it's certainly more style than substance, darting here and there, taking a breath, then propelling you again into the next part of the story.
Let's up the octave.
Baz Luhrmann's directorial panache is painted vividly from one end of the movie to the other, every shot artfully executed. In some ways it's edited more like a 159-minute trailer for a film called Elvis, certainly the first half of the film. Now, I was never a huge Elvis fan, but I was under no illusion that he had a consequential effect on every musician that followed in the second half of the 20th century. And seeing the movie, you'll be reminded exactly how that happened.
A lot of people say a lot of things. But in the end, you gotta listen to yourself.
There are a few times in the movie where they weave archival footage of Elvis, concerts and news items from the time into the film landscape. None of them seem out of place, and sometimes you're not quite sure if they're archival or shot for the film. But it's also a movie about the fractured American society of the 50s, 60s and 70s and some of the social absurdities that Elvis's career would have to navigate. Elvis pushed buttons and suffered because of his edgy performance style, upsetting conservative mid-20th century America. The film chronicles Elvis's early influences from his days as a child, attracted to gospel music and what used to be called race music, to become a rock and roll and movie star. But at its core, it chronicles the complex relationship with his creepy manager, Colonel Tom Parker, who the film reminds us wasn't a colonel, wasn't called Tom or Parker. The movie is narrated through the eyes of his manager by an unrecognisable, almost toad-like Tom Hanks. His accent is a bit strange, but was crafted by Tom Hanks to remind us that the Colonel was not exactly the person he claimed. But it's the performance of 31-year-old Austin Butler, which will linger long after you walk out of the cinema. Butler was awarded the role in 2019 and started filming in 2020 on Australia's Gold Coast, where the movie was mostly filmed and produced. While Elvis culturally has become a distant pop dinosaur for many, he's also become a fancy dress costume and a fleet of bad impersonators for others. The demise of the latter year Elvis has become an over-the-top parody of the man who remains the best-selling single music artist of all time. A flick of the hips, a gesture, some vocal contortions with a Southern American drawl, and you can have an Elvis. Austin Butler somehow transcends all this and rings out humanity, heart and soul. There are a few scenes in this movie where he isn't front and centre, and he never seems like he's doing an impersonation. Austin Butler didn't only provide the spoken words, he also provides much of the actual singing heard in the movie. Although he's explained that in the latter half, covering Elvis's Las Vegas era when the quality of the original recordings was vastly improved, they did use blended performances using the real Elvis singing as well. Put Austin Butler's name on the list for best performance by an actor in a leading role for next year's Oscars. It was that good. Apart from Baz Luhrmann's visual gymnastics, there are a few spine-tingling moments when the Australian director gets things just right. 3 come to mind. The first is the time when we see Elvis perform at the Louisiana Hayride, his historical breakthrough performance. The polite young audience, which had been previously spoon-fed by soft country ditties, were energised by the performer in pink, and the behaviour of the young women at concerts would never be the same. Then there's some extended moments when Elvis first heads back to Las Vegas in the last year of the 1960s after an 8-year break from live performances. Everything comes together to show why Elvis could own a stage in spine-tingling renditions of That's All Right and Suspicious Minds. The final song, Unchained Melody, includes real footage from an exhausted, almost bewildered Elvis just months before his death. It plays in full, but the wonders of CGI have created additional camera angles. It was some of the final footage of a bloated, drug-addled superstar in decline. But wow, it was a fitting and emotional tribute to the King. The film does take a firm stand on the goodies and baddies in this tale, and whilst not being totally sugar-coated, the movie doesn't spend too much time on Elvis's personal excesses and the poor decisions in his life. Whilst there are a few of Elvis's songs that get a full play, the soundtrack is saturated with his music. Some remixed, some performed by today's music stars, and even more symphonically layered throughout the narrative. The inclusion of the modern reworkings is a constant reminder of Elvis's ongoing impact in modern rock and roll and rhythm and blues styles. Elvis never performed outside of the US, the reasons made apparent in the movie, but his influence reached far and wide, even to Thailand. His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej, the former King of Thailand, and Queen Sirikit met Elvis Presley at the Paramount Studios on the GI Blues movie set in June 1960. Duke Ellington was also present in the room. Thailand's King Bhumibol Adulyadej was just 32 years old at the time and had just begun the 10th year of his reign. So Elvis made his way into Thai pop culture and remains a popular artist in the country. He's even spawned a whole Thai Elvis impersonation industry and performances where a jumpsuited impersonator would be performing somewhere in the kingdom just about every night somewhere. So although Elvis has left the building, the film has brought the almost Shakespearean tragedy back to life in a spirited retelling that even Elvis enthusiasts and purists will find difficult not to like. Tim Newton for The Tiger.
All right, boys. On a 1, 3, 4.